The year is 2023. The phone rang just as Jack Harrison was about to pour his second whiskey of the evening. He glanced at the clock. 10:47. No one had called him this late in years. He set the glass down on the worn wooden table and answered with a gravelly voice. Harrison. The silence on the other end of the line stretched just long enough for Jack to consider hanging up. Then a woman's voice, brittle and trembling, broke the quiet. Detective Harrison, are you the one who worked the Willow Creek disappearances in 1985? Jack tensed. It had been nearly 40 years since anyone had uttered that name in his presence. Willow Creek. 4 teenage girls vanished without a trace, the case that still haunted his nightmares. Who is this? He asked, his eyes drifting to the window, to the inky blackness surrounding his cabin on the outskirts of Biloxi. That doesn't matter, the woman replied. What matters is that I know who took those girls. Jack froze. For decades he had waited for a lead, for anything that might let him close the case that had forced him into an early retirement from the police department, a case that had cost him his marriage and nearly his sanity. I'm listening, Jack said, fighting to keep his voice steady. My husband, the woman continued, her voice barely a whisper. I think it was him. I found things, photographs, newspaper clippings about the disappearances, and a journal. My God, the things he wrote. I need a name, ma'am, Jack insisted, fumbling for a pen. Raymond Blackwood. We live outside Hattiesburg in an old house near the swamp. The woman paused. There's a hidden basement behind the bookshelf in his study. He never lets me in there, but last week, when he was away on a trip, I found the key. Jack scribbled the information, his hand shaking. Raymond Blackwood. The name didn't ring a bell, but Mississippi was a big state, and in 1985 they didn't have the technological resources of today. Why call me now? Why not the police? Because you know the case, and because Raymond has connections in the local police department. I can't trust them. Her voice dropped even lower. He comes back tomorrow. Please, detective, I know you're retired, but I need your help. I think some of those girls might still be alive. Jack's blood ran cold. What did you say? In his journal. He talks about his girls in the present tense, as if they're still with him somehow. Please come before he gets back. Give me your exact address, Jack demanded, feeling decades of guilt and failure sharpen into a renewed sense of purpose. The woman gave it to him, then added, My name is Martha Blackwood. I'll be waiting. The call ended abruptly. Jack stared at his notes, the whiskey forgotten. If what Martha said was true, he could finally solve the case that had both defined and destroyed his life. But he would need help. He picked up the phone again and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. Sarah Williams, a woman's voice answered on the third ring. Sarah, it's Jack Harrison. A tense silence filled the line. Sarah Williams was the older sister of Jessica Williams, one of the 4 girls who had vanished in 1985. She had been the only family member to stay in touch with Jack over the years, equally obsessed with finding the truth. Jack, it's been a while. I have a lead, Sarah, a good one, on Jessica and the other girls. Sarah's breath hitched. After all this time? I need you in Mississippi. I'll text you the details for a flight first thing in the morning. I'll be there, Sarah said without a moment's hesitation. Jack hung up and looked at the framed photograph on his desk. 4 smiling teenagers, Jessica Williams, Ellie Cooper, Megan Thompson, and Dana Rogers, gone one summer night in 1985 during the county fair. 4 shattered families, 4 interrupted lives, and not a single meaningful clue in decades. I'm going to find you, Jack murmured. This time I will. The next morning dawned gray and damp, typical for a late autumn in Mississippi. Jack waited at the terminal of the small regional airport, watching passengers disembark from the flight from Atlanta. He recognized Sarah immediately, even though it had been nearly 5 years since they had last seen each other. At 62, Sarah Williams carried herself with the same straight-backed posture and determined gaze that had defined her at 23, when she had sworn to find her younger sister at any cost. Her hair, now completely gray, was pulled back in a severe ponytail. "Jack," she said by way of greeting, her handshake firm. There were no hugs, no smiles. Theirs was a bond forged in grief and shared obsession. "Thanks for coming so quickly," he replied, taking her small suitcase. "We have a long drive to Hattiesburg." During the ride in Jack's old Ford, he told her about Martha Blackwood's call. Sarah listened in swoons, her hands clenched in her lap. "Do you think it's real?" she finally asked. "After all this time?" "I don't know," Jack admitted. "But it's the first solid lead in decades, and if there's even the slightest chance that Jessica and the other girls are alive—" "My sister would be 53 now," Sarah murmured. "If she's been held captive all this time—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Jack drove in silence for a moment before adding, "I called a contact at the FBI this morning, explained the situation. They'll be ready to move if we find anything concrete, but they can't act on an anonymous call, and my suspicions alone." Sarah nodded. "So it's up to us to find the proof." The rest of the drive passed mostly in silence, each of them lost in their own thoughts, in the possibilities and the horrors that might be waiting for them. The Blackwood house was exactly as Martha had described it, a decaying Victorian structure half hidden by enormous oaks draped in Spanish moss at the end of a dirt road that snaked its way into the swamp. The perfect place to hide secrets. "Wait here," Jack told Sarah as he approached the porch. "I need to check things out first." He rang the bell and waited. After a moment that felt like an eternity, the door creaked open. A woman in her 60s with graying hair and a face hollowed by fear peered out. "Detective Harrison?" she whispered. Jack nodded. "That's me, Mrs. Blackwood. I came as fast as I could." Martha opened the door wider, glancing nervously over Jack's shoulder. "Raymond isn't due back until tonight. We have a few hours." Her eyes fell on Sarah, waiting by the car. "Who is she?" "Sarah Williams. Her sister Jessica was one of the girls who disappeared." Martha turned even paler. "Oh my God," she murmured. "Please come in quickly." Once inside, Martha led them through the house to a study at the back. The room was dominated by a large bookshelf that covered an entire wall. "It's here," Martha said, gesturing to the shelves. "There's a door behind it. I found the key in his personal safe." With trembling hands, Martha pulled an antique key from her pocket and handed it to Jack. "There's a hidden mechanism on the third shelf behind the large dictionary." Jack found the book and, upon moving it, revealed a small keyhole. He inserted the key and turned. With a metallic click, the entire bookshelf shifted forward slightly. "Help me," he said to Sarah, and together they pushed the heavy unit, revealing a steel door behind it. "I haven't been inside," Martha confessed. "I didn't dare, but I saw enough in his journal." Jack used the same key to unlock the steel door. An automatic light flickered on, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. "Stay here with Sarah," Jack ordered Martha, drawing the pistol he, despite his retirement, never left at home. "I'll be right back." He descended the stairs slowly, each step groaning under his weight. The basement was larger than he had expected, lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs, and what he saw made his stomach turn. The walls were covered in photographs, hundreds of them. Images of Jessica, Ellie, Megan, and Dana. Some were newspaper clippings from 1985, but others, Others were much more recent. Pictures of adult women, clearly the same people but decades older. Some looked as if they had been taken without their knowledge. "My God," Jack muttered, his heart starting to pound. "They're alive, or at least they were recently." On a long table, items were carefully arranged and labeled. A hair ribbon, a silver ring, a locked diary, a necklace with a butterfly pendant. Jack recognized the necklace immediately. It belonged to Jessica Williams. Sarah had described it to him dozens of times. "Jack?" Sarah called from the top of the stairs. "What did you find?" "Don't come down," he said, but it was too late. Sarah was already descending, with Martha close behind. Sarah's choked gasp echoed in the basement as she saw the photographs. She staggered toward the wall, her fingers brushing against a recent picture of a woman with gray-streaked brown hair. "Jessica," she whispered. "Oh God, that's her. She's alive." Jack turned to Martha, who stood frozen at the foot of the stairs. "Where does he keep them? Do you know where they are?" Martha shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I don't know. He never mentioned it. We've only been married 10 years. I never suspected, not until I found the journal." "Where is that journal?" "In his safe. I couldn't get it out, but I photographed a few pages with my phone." Martha pulled out her cell and showed Jack the images. Pages of handwritten script, the penmanship neat and methodical, detailing disturbed thoughts about his girls and the sanctuary. "He mentions a place called the Sanctuary," Martha explained. "I think that's where he keeps them, but I don't know where it is." Suddenly, the sound of an engine rumbled up the driveway. "Raymond!" Martha cried, her voice filled with terror. "He's back early. Oh my God, he wasn't supposed to be here until tonight!" Jack acted fast. "Sarah, call the FBI, now. The number's in my phone." He tossed her his cell. "Martha, is there another way out of the house?" "Through the kitchen. There's a back door that leads to the swamp." "Good. You two get out that way. I'll hold him off." "No," Sarah said firmly, already dialing. "I'm not leaving. Not when we're this close to finding Jessica." Jack was about to argue when they heard the front door open. "Martha?" A man's voice called from the foyer. "Are you home, darling? My trip was canceled." The three of them looked at each other, paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. As footsteps drew inexorably closer to the study. "Hide," Jack whispered, pointing to a dark corner behind some filing cabinets. "Behind those, and don't make a sound." Martha and Sarah scrambled into the shadows as Jack positioned himself by the staircase, his pistol ready. The footsteps reached the study. "Martha!" Raymond's voice was closer now. "Why is the bookshelf moved? Have you been in my study?" Jack heard the footsteps stop abruptly. Then the unmistakable sound of a drawer being pulled open. "Come out from wherever you are," Raymond commanded, his voice now cold and controlled. "I can smell your perfume, Martha, and I know you're not alone." In a split-second decision, Jack took the stairs 2 at a time, emerging into the study with his weapon raised. Raymond Blackwood was not what Jack had imagined. He was a slender man of about 65, with neatly combed white hair and piercing blue eyes. He wore an expensive gray suit and held a shotgun he had just pulled from a desk drawer. "Police," Jack said, aiming squarely at Raymond's chest. "Put the weapon down, Mr. Blackwood." A strange smile played on Raymond's lips. "You're not police, not active duty anyway. I know a washed-up cop when I see one." His eyes narrowed. "Harrison? Jack Harrison? Martha called you, didn't she?" Jack held his ground. "Put the gun down now." "You know, I followed your career," Raymond continued, ignoring the command. "The detective obsessed with the Willow Creek girls. Never gave up, did you?" "Admirable." He smiled again. "Futile, but admirable." "We know you have them," Jack said. "We've seen the photographs, the journal. It's over, Blackwood." Raymond let out a short, dry laugh. Over. It's just beginning, detective. With a swiftness that betrayed his age, Raymond fired the shotgun at the ceiling. The blast was deafening in the enclosed space. Jack ducked instinctively, and by the time he looked up, Raymond was already running toward the back of the house. "Stay here!" Jack yelled to Sarah and Martha, who had come upstairs at the sound of the shot. He then took off after Raymond. He burst through the kitchen just in time to see Blackwood disappear through the back door. Jack followed him out into the swamp, knowing he was being led onto dangerous ground. The sky had darkened, promising a storm, and a fog was beginning to rise from the stagnant water. "Blackwood!" Jack shouted, watching the figure zigzag between the cypress trees and marshy patches. "There's no way out!" Raymond stopped suddenly and turned. They were in a small clearing surrounded by dark water and moss-draped trees. "There's always a way out, detective," he replied, leveling the shotgun. "The only question is, which one of us will find it?" Jack ducked behind a thick tree trunk as Raymond fired again. Bark exploded inches from his head. "Why Blackwood?" Jack yelled, trying to buy time. The FBI would be at least 20 minutes out, assuming Sarah had even managed to reach them. "Why these girls? Why keep them all these years?" Raymond laughed, a sound that chilled Jack's blood. "You could never understand, Harrison. They are my muses, my perfect companions. They never grow old, you see. Not in your mind, maybe, but they have," Jack retorted, his voice low and steady. "I saw them in your photographs. It's been almost 40 years. "Silence!" Raymond's shriek tore through the swamp, startling a flock of birds into a frantic, noisy ascent. "Do not speak of what you do not understand." Jack seized the moment. He used the distraction to shift his position, moving like a phantom between the cypress trees. He needed to get closer. "Where are they, Raymond?" Jack pressed. "Where do you have Jessica, Ellie, Megan, and Dana?" "My girls are safe," Raymond answered, his voice suddenly unnervingly calm. "Away from a world that never deserved them. I've given them a perfect sanctuary." "Captivity isn't a sanctuary," Jack countered. He was only a few yards away now, hidden behind the broad trunk of a cypress. "And what do you know of freedom, Harrison? You've been just as captive as them, trapped in your obsession. At least I gave them purpose." Jack saw his opening as Raymond's gaze flickered toward a rustle in the undergrowth. He lunged, tackling the man with all the force his 65-year-old body could muster. Both men crashed into the marshy ground, grappling for control of the shotgun. Despite his frail appearance, Raymond fought with a surprising, wiry strength. He managed to slam the butt of the weapon against Jack's temple, stunning him. Jack staggered back, hot blood trickling down his cheek. Raymond scrambled to his feet, leveling the gun once more. "I should kill you right here, Harrison. End your misery." "You won't," Jack said, fighting to keep his voice even despite the throbbing in his head. "Because you know others will come. The FBI is on its way. Martha is showing them the proof. It's only a matter of time." Raymond's expression faltered, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. "Martha," he murmured. "I never should have trusted her." "She's your wife," Jack said, slowly pushing himself to his feet. "She loved you." "Love is an illusion, detective, an invisible chain. My girls, they understand true devotion." Jack was about to reply when he heard the snap of a twig behind him. He glanced over his shoulder to see Sarah creeping cautiously through the trees, a thick branch clutched in her hands like a club. "I told you to stay at the house," Jack growled, his eyes locked on Raymond. "I was never very good at following orders," Sarah shot back, moving to stand beside him. She turned her furious gaze on Raymond. "Where is my sister, you monster? Where is Jessica?" Raymond studied her with a detached curiosity. "Ah, Sarah Williams, the older sister. Jessica spoke of you a great deal, at first. He smiled, a cruel twist of his lips. She doesn't anymore. Sarah took a step forward, but Jack held her back with a firm hand. Not like this, he muttered. He kept his eyes on Raymond. The FBI is coming. Sarah nodded. 10 minutes, they said. Plenty of time to disappear, Raymond said, backing slowly toward the dense tree line. They won't find me. They never have. This time is different, Jack replied. We know who you are. We have proof. It doesn't matter where you hide, Raymond. We will find you. Raymond let out a bitter laugh. And what will that get you, Harrison? Justice, peace? I'll let you in on a secret. There's no such thing. Just tell us where the girls are, Sarah demanded, her voice cracking. Please, it's been 40 years. Their families deserve to know. Something in Raymond's expression shifted. For a fleeting instant, a glimmer of humanity seemed to surface in his eyes. Ellie is in the cabin by Black Lake, he said, his voice barely a whisper. North of here, about 20 miles. She's sick. She needs her medication. Jack and Sarah exchanged a look of stunned disbelief. And the others? Jack asked, taking a cautious step forward. Raymond's smile returned, the momentary vulnerability gone as if it had never been. One secret at a time, detective. Just then, the distant wail of sirens began to drift through the trees. Raymond glanced toward the sound, then back at Jack. Time's up, he said, and swiftly raised the shotgun. Jack reacted on pure instinct, firing his own weapon twice. Raymond stumbled backward, his shotgun discharging harmlessly into the air. Jack rushed forward, kicking the weapon out of his reach. Blackwood was wounded but alive. One bullet had grazed his shoulder, the other was lodged in his leg. He lay on the swampy ground, his blood mingling with the murky water. You're right, Harrison, Raymond rasped, his breath catching with pain. This time is different, but not in the way you think. Jack knelt beside him, applying pressure to the wound as Sarah stood guard with Jack's gun. What do you mean? Jack demanded. Raymond smiled, revealing blood-stained teeth. Jessica, Megan, and Dana. I've had them with me for nearly 40 years. Imagine what that does to a human mind. They aren't the girls you remember. He turned his head to look at Sarah. Your sister might prefer to stay where she is. Sarah's hands clenched into fists, fighting the urge to strike him. My sister deserves to be free. They all do. The sirens were much closer now. Jack could see the flashing lights pulsing through the trees. Tell us where the others are, Blackwood, Jack insisted. You can cooperate now, or you can wait for the FBI to use their methods. Raymond closed his eyes, the ghost of a smile still on his lips. Black Lake for Ellie, the shelter for Jessica. You'll never find the other two. Where is the shelter? Sarah demanded, kneeling beside Jack. Raymond's eyes fluttered open, his gaze feverish. In the heart of the swamp, where the dead whisper and the shadows have teeth. Jack swore under his breath. Blackwood was playing games, losing blood and likely going into shock. Over here! He shouted as he saw the first FBI agents moving through the swamp. Within minutes, the clearing was swarming with agents. A medical team tended to Raymond while Jack explained the situation to the agent in charge, a tall, serious man named Daniels. We have to get to Black Lake now, Jack urged. He says one of the victims is there and she's sick. Agent Daniels nodded. We've already dispatched a team. We also have Mrs. Blackwood in protective custody and are processing the evidence from the cellar. What about the shelter? Sarah asked, staying close to Jack's side. He said my sister is there. We're deploying drones with thermal imaging to sweep the swamp, Daniels replied. If there's a hidden structure out there, we'll find it. Jack glanced at Raymond, who was now being loaded onto a stretcher. We don't have time, he muttered. If he's telling the truth about Ellie. Let's go, Harrison, Daniels said, placing a hand on his shoulder. We'll take you to the lake, but this is an FBI operation now. You're here as a consultant, nothing more." Jack nodded, though frustration tightened his jaw. He had chased this case for nearly 40 years, and now he had to hand over the reins. Sarah walked with him as they headed back toward the vehicles. "Do you think he's telling the truth about Jessica and the others?" Jack let out a long, heavy sigh. "I don't know, Sarah. Blackwood is a master manipulator. He could be leading us into a trap or just sending us away from where he's really keeping them. Or maybe," Sarah suggested, her voice laced with fragile hope, "maybe he's telling the truth because he knows he has nowhere left to run." "Maybe," Jack conceded. "We're about to find out." As they climbed into the FBI SUV, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Raymond Blackwood had kept his secrets for nearly 4 decades. He wasn't going to give them all up that easily. The drive to Black Lake took nearly 40 minutes over poorly maintained county roads. When they arrived, the scene was already secured. A small, dilapidated wooden cabin stood beside the dark water, surrounded by gnarled cypress trees. "We found her," an agent reported to Daniels as they stepped out of the vehicle. "Female, mid-50s, conscious but weak. Says her name is Ellie Cooper." Sarah choked back a sob. Jack instinctively took her hand, squeezing it tight. "Is she?" Jack couldn't finish the question. "Alive," the agent confirmed. "Paramedics are with her now. It looks like she's been receiving some kind of medication, but not enough. She's malnourished and dehydrated." "Can I see her?" Sarah asked, her voice a mere whisper. The agent looked to Daniels, who nodded after a moment's hesitation. "Briefly. They need to stabilize her for transport." Jack and Sarah followed the agent into the cabin. Inside, on a narrow cot, lay a woman with graying hair and a gaunt, hollowed-out face. Her eyes, though sunken, held a spark of life. Paramedics moved around her, hooking up IVs and monitoring her vitals. "Ellie," Jack murmured, approaching slowly. "I'm Jack Harrison. Do you remember me?" The woman turned her head, her eyes squinting to focus. "The detective," she whispered, her voice raspy. "Raymond said you never gave up." A lump formed in Jack's throat. "Never." Sarah moved forward, kneeling by the bed. "Ellie, I'm Sarah Williams, Jessica's sister. Is Jessica—" Ellie closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were filled with tears. "Jess is alive in the shelter with Raymond, always with Raymond." "Where is the shelter, Ellie?" Jack asked gently. "We need to find her." "Underground," Ellie replied, where the dead can't find us, that's what he always said." She paused, struggling for breath. "Old Man Hawkins' cabin, deep in the swamp. There's a cellar. It's bigger than it looks." Jack exchanged a look with Sarah. "What about Megan and Dana?" he asked, dreading the answer. Ellie's face twisted in a spasm of pain that didn't seem physical. "They're gone," she whispered. "A long time ago. They couldn't take it." Fresh tears welled in her eyes. "Raymond said he set them free, but his way of setting things free—" She didn't need to finish. A cold dread snaked its way down Jack's spine. "Sir," one of the paramedics interrupted, "we need to transport her now." Jack nodded and stepped back. Sarah gently squeezed Ellie's hand. "We're going to find Jessica," she promised. "And you're going to be okay now. You're safe." Ellie managed a sad, weak smile. "No one is ever safe, Sarah. Not really. Not after Raymond." As the paramedics prepared Ellie for the move, Jack pulled Agent Daniels aside. "Old Man Hawkins's cabin. Does that mean anything to you?" Daniels shook his head but was already on his radio relaying the information. "I need a detailed map of the swamp," he ordered, "and run a search for any property registered to a Hawkins." "It won't be registered," Jack said. If that's where he's kept Jessica all these years, Blackwood made sure it's untraceable. Then we'll use the drones, Daniels countered, and we'll talk to the locals. Someone has to know the place. Sarah joined them, her face a mask of hope and terror. We're going to find her, right? Jack looked her in the eye, remembering the promise he'd made her almost 40 years ago. Yes, Sarah. This time we're bringing Jessica home. As they watched the ambulance drive away with Ellie, Jack couldn't help but wonder what they would find in Raymond Blackwood's shelter. And more importantly, whether Jessica Williams, after nearly 4 decades in captivity, would still be the person her sister remembered. Night had fallen on the swamp by the time the FBI team finally located Hawkins's cabin. An old fisherman in the area remembered the place, a structure abandoned for decades, sitting on a small island deep in the marsh, accessible only by boat through narrow, treacherous channels. It's a death trap, the fisherman, a weathered man in his 70s, had explained. Old man Hawkins was a paranoid hermit, lined the whole area with snares and pits to keep folks out. After he died back in the 70s, nobody dared go near the place. Agent Daniels quickly assembled a tactical team, but Jack insisted on going with them. I know Blackwood, he argued. I've been on this case for 40 years. You need my eyes in there. Daniels finally relented, but on strict conditions. Jack and Sarah would remain in the rear, wearing vests and under constant protection. The journey through the swamp was slow and tense. 3 boats moved in formation, guided by tactical lights and the local knowledge of the fishermen who had agreed to lead them part of the way. That's it, up ahead, the old man finally said, pointing to a dark mass barely visible in the night. Hawkins's Island. This is as far as I go. Channels get tight and the traps start soon. The agents continued alone, moving inch by inch, using metal detectors to scan for submerged traps. The tension was a palpable thing in the air as Jack and Sarah watched from the last boat. After all these years, Sarah murmured, her gaze fixed on the darkness ahead. What will she be like now? Jack had no answer. Ellie's words echoed in his mind. No one is ever safe, not after Raymond. After nearly an hour of cautious progress, they reached the shore of the small island. The cabin was barely visible through the wild overgrowth, a time-darkened wooden structure with boarded-up windows and a sagging porch. The tactical team disembarked first, securing the perimeter. Jack and Sarah waited in an agony of impatience until they were given the signal to approach. We found multiple traps, one of the agents reported. Hidden pits with stakes, tripwires, even some crude homemade mines. Blackwood didn't want visitors. The house? Jack asked, helping Sarah step out of the boat. We haven't gone in yet. We're checking for explosives. 20 minutes later, the team gave the all clear. The cabin was secure, but they'd found something else. A hidden trap door beneath a threadbare rug in what looked to be the main living area. Jack felt his heart hammer in his chest as they approached the open hatch. A metal ladder descended into darkness. The shelter, he muttered. The tactical team leader went down first, followed by 2 more agents. Several tense minutes passed before his voice echoed from below. Clear, but you need to see this. Jack and Sarah descended with Agent Daniels close behind. What they found below left them breathless. It wasn't a simple cellar, but a surprisingly large underground complex, concrete walls, fluorescent lights, a generator humming softly in a corner. And more unsettling, it was furnished like a normal house. A living room, a kitchen, 3 doors that presumably led to bedrooms. My God, Sarah whispered. He built a bunker, a gilded cage, Jack corrected, taking in the details. The fake windows displaying photographs of landscapes, the furniture that looked like it was from an 80s catalog, the bookshelf filled with neatly arranged books. "In here!" one of the agents called from behind one of the doors. Jack and Sarah hurried over. It was a bedroom, decorated in an outdated but impeccable style. Sitting in a rocking chair next to a fake window showing a perpetual sunrise was a woman with gray hair. She didn't look up as they entered, continuing with her task. She was knitting what appeared to be a blue wool sweater. "Jessica?" Sarah's voice broke as she said her sister's name. The woman finally raised her head. Her eyes, the same intense green as Sarah's, seemed to take a moment to focus on the newcomers. "It's Thursday," she said, her voice soft and monotone. "Raymond doesn't come on Thursdays." Sarah took a step forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Jess, it's me. Sarah, your sister." Jessica tilted her head slightly, studying Sarah's face with an expression of mild curiosity. "Sarah is at university," she stated, "studying law." She returned to her knitting. "Raymond told me." Jack felt a knot form in his throat. Jessica's dissociation was stark, a defense mechanism built over decades of captivity. Sarah knelt in front of the rocking chair, gently taking Jessica's hands, stopping her knitting. "Jessica, look at me. It's been almost 40 years. I'm here to take you home." Something shifted in Jessica's eyes. A flicker of recognition, perhaps. She dropped the knitting needles and, with trembling hands, touched Sarah's face. "Sarah?" she whispered. "My Sarah?" "Yes, Jess, it's me." Sarah couldn't hold back her sobs. "I never stopped looking for you." Jessica blinked several times as if waking from a long dream. 40 years, she repeated. Then her expression changed, twisting into panic. "Where's Raymond? He can't know you came. He'll be angry. He'll take the others." "Raymond isn't coming back," Jack assured her, approaching cautiously. "He's in police custody." Jessica looked at him with distrust. "You're the detective, the one who never gave up." It wasn't a question. "Raymond talked about you sometimes. He said you were persistent but useless." Jack nodded slowly. "I'm Jack Harrison, and I'm sorry it took so long to find you, Jessica." The woman looked around, suddenly agitated. "Where are Megan and Dana and Ellie? Raymond said Ellie was sick. He took her upstairs a few days ago." Sarah and Jack exchanged a worried glance. "Ellie is safe," Sarah answered softly. "She's getting medical care." "And the others?" Jessica insisted, her voice now firmer, more present. Jack took a deep breath. "Jessica, we need you to tell us where Megan and Dana are. Blackwood refuses to talk." A shadow crossed Jessica's face. She rose from the rocking chair with stiff movements, as if unused to the motion, and walked to a small desk in the corner of the room. From a drawer, she pulled out a worn notebook and handed it to Sarah. "Here," she said simply. Sarah opened the notebook with shaking hands. It was filled with dated entries, a kind of diary. Jack leaned over her shoulder to read. "Oh, God," Sarah murmured as she flipped through the pages. "She's been keeping a record all these years." Jack took the notebook and skimmed to the most recent entries. He stopped on a page dated 3 years ago. "Today, Raymond took Dana's body to the swamp," he read in a low voice. "He said she had finally found peace. She hadn't eaten in weeks. I knew she would let herself die sooner or later. Raymond seemed sad, but not angry like when Megan—" Sarah closed her eyes, the pain clear on her face. "They're dead, both of them." Jessica nodded slowly. "Donna gave up. She just stopped eating, stopped talking. Raymond tried to force her, but she found her own way to escape." Her voice was strangely dispassionate, as if she were speaking of characters in a story and not her fellow captives. "Megan was different. She tried to run back in '94. Raymond caught her. He was very angry. A wave of nausea washed over Jack, but he kept his composure. Jessica, do you know where they're buried? In the swamp, she replied, sitting back down in the rocking chair. Raymond has special places for his treasures. He never showed me where, but he talked about a bog where time stands still and preserves beauty forever. Agent Daniels, who had been listening in silence, approached Jack. We're going to need specialized search teams and cadaver dogs. If they're in the swamp, it'll be hard to find them. Ask Marta, Jessica suggested unexpectedly. She knows more than she lets on. Raymond told her things when he thought I wasn't listening. Jack nodded, making a mental note to question Blackwood's wife again. Sarah remained kneeling before her sister, holding her hands as if she feared Jessica might vanish if she let go. We're going to get you out of here, Jess. We're taking you home. Jessica looked around the room that had been her world for decades. I don't know if I can live up there, she murmured. The sky is too big, the people are too loud. I'll be with you every step of the way, Sarah promised. I'm never leaving you alone again. The paramedics entered then, ready to assess Jessica's condition and prepare her for transport. Jack stepped aside, giving them space, and moved toward Daniels. I want to interrogate Blackwood again, he said quietly. Now that we have Jessica and we know about Megan and Dana, maybe we can pressure him to reveal where the bodies are. Daniels nodded. I'll keep you posted. In the meantime, we're going to process this place thoroughly. 40 years of evidence is buried here. Jack watched as the medics examined Jessica, while Sarah stayed by her side, whispering words of comfort. It was the heartbreaking image of a reunion 4 decades in the making. It's over, Jessica, he heard Sarah say. Raymond can never hurt you again. Jessica looked up, her eyes suddenly lucid. You're wrong, Sarah. It's never over. She touched her temple with a trembling finger. Raymond will always be here, in my head, forever. A chill ran down Jack's spine. For Jessica Williams, the real battle was just beginning. Freeing her from her physical prison was only the first step. Freeing her from the mental prison Blackwood had built for 40 years would be a much harder fight. As they climbed the stairs, leading Jessica toward the surface, toward a world she barely remembered, Jack wondered how many more like her were out there. How many victims of predators like Raymond Blackwood were still captive, forgotten, waiting to be found. His work wasn't finished, not while there were cold cases, missing people, families waiting for answers. Jack Harrison was 65 years old. He was tired and he was hurting. But as he stepped out of the cabin and saw Jessica look up at the stars for the first time in decades, he knew he would keep fighting. For Jessica, for Ellie, for Megan and Dana, and for all the others still waiting to be found. The Hattiesburg Central Hospital was buzzing with activity when Jack arrived the next morning. He had spent the night at the local precinct reviewing the case with Daniels and preparing for the interrogation of Raymond Blackwood, who remained in police custody in the hospital's secure wing. Sarah was waiting for him in the cafeteria, looking exhausted but determined. She hadn't left Jessica's side since the rescue. How is she? Jack asked, sitting across from her with a cup of coffee. Physically, she's surprisingly okay, Sarah replied, rubbing her bloodshot eyes. Malnourished and vitamin deficient, but nothing irreversible. Mentally, she paused, searching for the words. It's like she's shifting between 2 people. Sometimes she's my Jess, talking about our childhood, asking about Mom and Dad. Other times, her voice broke. Other times she talks as if she's still in that basement, waiting for Raymond, worrying that dinner won't be ready when he gets home. Jack nodded grimly. Stockholm Syndrome, most likely. After so much time in captivity, she developed a bond with her captor as a survival mechanism. The psychiatrists say it will take years of therapy, Sarah continued. and that she may never fully recover. But she's alive, Jack pointed out, and now she has a chance. Sarah managed a weary smile. Yes, that's more than I thought possible for a long, long time. She took a sip of her coffee. What about Ellie? Stable from what I've been told. She's in a high-security room 2 floors up. Her family is on their way from California. And Blackwood? Jack's jaw tightened. I'm interrogating him in an hour. The doctors say he's recovered enough from his injuries. Sarah set her cup down on the table with more force than necessary. I want to be there. Sarah? No, Jack. I've waited 40 years to look the man who destroyed my family in the eye. You are not going to deny me this. Jack considered arguing, but he recognized the determination in Sarah's eyes. It was the same fire that had kept her searching for her sister for decades when everyone else had given up. All right, he conceded finally, but you let me lead the interrogation. No interruptions, no emotional outbursts. We need him to talk, to tell us where Megan and Dana's bodies are. Sarah nodded, though Jack could see the barely contained rage in the set of her jaw. When they entered the hospital room where Raymond Blackwood was being held, Jack was struck by how ordinary the man looked under the fluorescent lights. Pale, gray-haired, his arm and leg bandaged where Jack's bullets had hit him. If he'd seen him on the street, he never would have suspected he was looking at a monster. Blackwood looked up from a book he was reading, and a slow smile spread across his face when he saw them enter. Detective Harrison and the persistent Sarah Williams. What an honor. Jack pulled a chair up to the bed while Sarah remained standing by the door where an FBI agent stood guard. We found Jessica, Jack said without preamble. And Ellie. We know about Megan and Dana. Blackwood closed his book carefully, marking the page with a finger. And how are my girls? Has Jessica asked for me? Sarah took a step forward, but Jack stopped her with a warning glance. Your girls, as you call them, are receiving the medical and psychological care they need, Jack replied coldly. We're here to talk about Megan Thompson and Dana Rogers. Blackwood leaned back against the pillows, studying Jack with clear amusement. What do you want to know exactly, Detective? If they suffered? If they cried out for their mothers before the end? His eyes shifted to Sarah. If your Jessica cried when she watched them die? Sarah's hands clenched into fists, but she held her ground, her gaze locked on Blackwood with a palpable hatred. I want to know where their bodies are, Jack said, his tone all business. Their families deserve to be able to bury them properly. Blackwood let out a soft laugh. After all this time, I doubt there's much left to bury, Detective. The swamp preserves, Jack countered. You said it yourself, a place where time stands still and preserves beauty forever. That's what you told Jessica. Something in Blackwood's expression shifted, a flicker of surprise quickly masked. Jessica was always the most attentive of my girls, observant, clever. Where are they, Blackwood? Jack pressed. Cooperating could help you at trial. Raymond laughed out loud. Trial? I'm 72 years old, Detective. I'm sick. The doctors say the cancer has spread throughout my body. I have 6 months, maybe a year. I won't live to see a trial. Jack kept his expression impassive, though the news startled him. All the more reason to do the right thing in the end. Give those families some peace. Peace, Blackwood repeated, savoring the word. Do you think such a thing exists, Harrison? After 40 years, Dana's mother is dead, Megan's father too. The ones who are left have rebuilt their lives, learned to live with the pain. His eyes narrowed. Like you, like Sarah. The pain became your companion, your purpose. What will you do now that you no longer have to search? This isn't about us, Sarah cut in, her voice surprisingly steady. It's about Megan and Dana. It's about giving them back the dignity you stole. Blackwood regarded her with a flicker of new interest. I always did admire your determination, Sarah Williams. Jessica spoke of you constantly in the beginning. How her big sister would never give up. How you would come to rescue her. He smiled. Then she stopped mentioning you. I think she finally accepted her new life. Sarah took a step forward. Listen to me, you monster. My sister never accepted you. She survived you. There's a difference. Do you think so? Blackwood tilted his head. Ask her who held her hand during the nightmares, who read to her when she was sick, who comforted her after Megan and Dana died. After you murdered them, Sarah spat. Blackwood shook his head. I never killed anyone, Sarah. Dana simply faded away. She refused to eat for weeks. I did everything I could to save her. His face darkened. And Megan? Megan brought her fate upon herself. Trying to escape? Jack asked. Was that her crime? The swamp is a treacherous place, Blackwood answered evasively. It's full of natural traps, quicksand, deep bogs. Someone who doesn't know the terrain shouldn't venture out alone. Jack leaned forward. Is that where she is? In quicksand? An enigmatic smile touched Blackwood's lips. The Black Cypress Swamp, east of Hawkins' cabin, about 2 kilometers in. There's a rock formation that looks like an outstretched hand. He paused. Megan is there. Dana is somewhere else. Jack jotted down the information, a mix of relief and mistrust churning in his gut. And Dana? Blackwood closed his eyes for a moment. Weeping Willow Island on the northern edge of the swamp. I buried her beneath the largest tree. He opened his eyes, looking directly at Sarah. She liked willows, said they reminded her of home in Ohio. Sarah flinched visibly but held her composure. Why tell us now? Jack asked. Why cooperate after all this time? Because it no longer matters, Detective. Blackwood's smile was tinged with sadness. The game is over, and believe it or not, I want this to end too. Death is coming for me, and contrary to what you think, I am not entirely a monster. You're not? Sarah's voice was laced with disbelief. You kidnapped 4 teenage girls. You held them captive for decades. You destroyed their lives and the lives of their families. I gave them a purpose, Blackwood replied with serene conviction. A sanctuary from the cruel world that awaited them. I gave them protection, education, companionship. He shrugged. Call me a monster if you wish, but I never abandoned them, the way so many parents abandon their children. Nausea rose in Jack's throat at Blackwood's twisted logic. One last question, he said, preparing to stand. Why them? Why those 4 particular girls? Raymond glanced toward the window where the morning light painted patterns on the wall. Beauty, innocence, potential, qualities the world inevitably destroys. He turned his gaze back to Jack. I saw them at the county fair, laughing together, so full of life. I knew I had to preserve them, to protect them from what was to come. And how many others were there? Jack asked, following a hunch. Before them or after? Blackwood's smile widened. Very clever, Detective. You were always the sharpest of your colleagues. He paused theatrically. But that is a story for another day, or perhaps for never. Jack nodded slowly, understanding that Blackwood was playing his final card, holding back secrets to remain relevant, to ensure they would visit him again. Come on, Sarah, he said, rising. We have what we need. Sarah took one last step toward Blackwood's bed. I want you to know something, Raymond, she said, her voice perfectly controlled. Jessica is going to heal. She is going to have the life you stole from her. And you will be forgotten, a nameless monster in nightmares that will eventually fade away. For the first time, Jack saw something like fear flicker across Blackwood's face, the fear of being forgotten, of becoming irrelevant, the deepest cut for a narcissist like him. As they left the room, Jack placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "You held it together." Sarah exhaled a long, shaky breath. "I wanted to kill him, Jack, with my own hands." "I know. Me too." They walked toward Jessica's room where doctors were making their morning rounds. Through the window, Jack could see her sitting up in bed, answering questions with a cautious expression. "Do you think we'll ever be able to close this case completely?" Sarah asked, watching her sister. Jack followed her gaze. "Cases like this never really close, Sarah. Not completely. But we can give Megan and Dana a proper burial. And we can help Jessica and Ellie rebuild their lives." He paused. "That's more than we thought possible just 2 days ago." Sarah nodded, and for the first time in the 4 decades Jack had known her, he saw something new in her eyes. Hope. "I'm taking her home," Sarah said with resolve. "To my house in Atlanta. The doctors say she might be discharged in a few days with outpatient therapy and medication." "That's a good idea," Jack agreed. "She'll need to be around family." "And you? What will you do now, Jack?" Jack glanced down the hall toward Blackwood's room, where 2 FBI agents now stood guard. "I'm going to find out if there are more," he answered firmly. "Blackwood hinted at other victims. I can't let that go." Sarah looked at him with understanding. "So the obsession continues." "It's not obsession, Sarah. It's responsibility." Jack offered a faint smile. "Besides, what else would I do? Go fishing? Play golf?" Sarah laughed for the first time in days, a sound that momentarily lightened the heavy air around them. "I'll let you know when we're leaving for Atlanta. Jessica asked about you last night. I think she wants to thank you." Jack nodded, though the thought of being thanked made him uneasy. It had taken him 40 years to find her. 40 years of failure before this one success. As Sarah entered Jessica's room, Jack headed for the elevators. He had to brief Daniels on the location of the bodies and organize the search teams, but first he would stop by Ellie Cooper's room. Perhaps she could shed more light on what Blackwood might have done to the others. The Willow Creek disappearances were finally drawing to a close, but for Jack Harrison, the work was just beginning. As long as there were monsters like Raymond Blackwood lurking in the shadows, as long as there were voiceless victims and families without answers, he would keep searching. He would keep fighting. It was the only thing he knew how to do, the only thing that gave his life meaning. The Black Cypress Swamp was a nightmarish place in the gray light of dawn. Jack stood at the edge of the murky water, watching the forensics team prepare their specialized equipment. 2 days had passed since Blackwood's confession, and they finally had the necessary permits and personnel to begin recovering the remains of Megan Thompson. "This will be difficult," commented Dr. Elena Vasquez, the forensic anthropologist leading the team. She was a petite woman in her 50s with an accent that betrayed her Puerto Rican roots and an impeccable reputation for recovering remains in extreme conditions. "The swamp preserves, yes, but it also transforms. After so many years, the remains will be mummified by the water's tannins, but they may have shifted with the subterranean currents." Jack nodded, watching as technicians cautiously waded into the water with probing rods. "How long do you think it will take?" "If we're lucky and Blackwood's directions are accurate, perhaps today. If not," she shrugged, "we could be searching for weeks." A shout from the bank caught his attention. A young technician was pointing toward a rock formation about 100 meters away. "I've found it, the formation that looks like a hand." Jack and Dr. Vasquez hurried over. Sure enough, a cluster of eroded rocks rose from the water, forming what could, with a bit of imagination, be interpreted as a hand, reaching for the sky. "This has to be it." Jack murmured, feeling his pulse quicken. The next few minutes bled into hours as the team worked methodically, probing the swamp bed around the rocks. Jack remained silent, observing every movement, every gesture between the technicians. It was just after noon when he heard the crunch. "We've got something!" Jack moved as close as he was allowed, watching the technicians work with extreme care, using small tools to clear away the mud that covered what were unmistakably human remains. "It's her," Dr. Vasquez confirmed after a preliminary inspection. "Female, estimated age between 25 and 35 at the time of death. Given the preservation, I'd say she's been here at least 20 years, possibly more. Megan Thompson was 16 when she disappeared," Jack said quietly. "Blackwood said she tried to escape in 1994. She would have been 25 then." The doctor's face was grim as she supervised the careful extraction. "There's evidence of trauma to the cranium, a blunt force blow that likely caused her death." A wave of sickness washed over Jack as he pictured Megan's final moments. Trapped in the swamp, perhaps hunted by Blackwood, a fatal blow before being left to the dark water. "How long will it take to process her?" he asked, keeping his voice professional despite the rage he felt. "The full extraction will take hours, the forensic analysis days, but hopefully, we can confirm her identity with dental records and the DNA her family provided years ago." Jack nodded and stepped away, needing a moment. He pulled out his phone and dialed Sarah's number. "We found Megan," he said when she answered. "We're recovering her remains now." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds. Was she where Blackwood said? Yes, it seems he was honest about this at least. "Will you go for Dana next?" "Tomorrow. The team needs to process this scene completely first." Another silence. "Jessica is awake. The doctors say she's improving. She asked about you again." Jack closed his eyes. "I'll be there tonight after we're finished here." "Thank you, Jack, for everything." When the call ended, Jack rejoined the forensics team. The scene was solemn. Technicians kneeling in the murky water, carefully extracting the last remnants of a young woman who had spent nearly half her short life in captivity and the rest forgotten in the mud. "Detective Harrison," one of the techs called out. "We found something else." Jack moved closer and looked at the small object the technician held with tweezers. A silver ring, simple but recognizable. "That's her class ring, class of '85, Jack murmured. "Megan got it a few weeks before she disappeared. Her mother mentioned it in her original statement." Dr. Vasquez looked at him, her expression a mix of sadness and professionalism. "A personal item like this will be crucial for the identification." Jack nodded, a strange sense of partial closure settling over him. After decades, he could finally tell Megan Thompson's family where their daughter was. It wasn't the happy ending they had once hoped for, but it was an ending. At least now there would be a grave to visit. The hospital was quiet when Jack arrived that night, physically and emotionally exhausted. He had spent the entire day in the swamp, and tomorrow, it would all begin again with the search for Dana. Sarah was waiting for him in the hallway outside Jessica's room. "She's having a good day," she said by way of greeting. "The doctors have lowered her medication and she's more lucid." Jack nodded, noticing the dark circles under Sarah's eyes. "Have you gotten any sleep?" "Not much. I stay up just watching her breathe." Sarah gave a weak smile. "It sounds ridiculous, but I'm afraid that if I fall asleep, I'll wake up and find out this was all a dream, that Jessica is still gone." "It's not ridiculous," Jack said gently. "It's understandable." They entered the room together. Jessica was sitting up in bed, flipping through a magazine. When she looked up, Jack saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes that hadn't been there during the rescue. "Detective Harrison," she said, setting the magazine aside. "Sarah told me you were looking for Megan today." Jack nodded, moving closer to the bed. "We found her, Jessica. She'll be going home to her family soon." Jessica closed her eyes, and a single tear traced a path down her cheek. "I promised her we'd get out of there one day, that someone would find us." "We did," Jack said, taking the chair beside her bed. "I'm just sorry it took so long." Jessica shook her head. "You never gave up. Raymond hated you for that." A fleeting smile crossed her face. "I used to pray you'd catch him, every night for years, until I stopped believing anyone was coming." Sarah took her sister's hand. "But we did come, Jess, and you're safe now." Jessica looked at her sister, her expression complicated. "Sometimes it doesn't feel like it. Sometimes I wake up and I expect to see the walls of the shelter. I expect to hear Raymond coming down the stairs." She squeezed Sarah's hand. "Does that make me a horrible person?" "No," Jack answered firmly. "It makes you human. You were there for 40 years, Jessica. Your mind adapted to survive. It's going to take time to readapt." Jessica looked at him, studying his tired face. "Did you find his diary, Raymond's?" "We've seen some photographed pages, but we haven't found the original." "You should look for it," Jessica said, her voice suddenly stronger. "There are things in there you need to know. About the others." Jack tensed. "What others, Jessica?" "The ones before us. Raymond used to talk sometimes when he thought we weren't listening about his first girls. He'd say we were better, more grateful." Jessica swallowed hard. "I think there were others before us, girls who didn't cooperate." A chill traced its way down Jack's spine, his suspicions now confirmed by the one person who knew Blackwood best. "Did he mention names, places?" Jessica shook her head. "Only hints, but he wrote everything in his journal. I saw him do it every night for hours." She paused. "Martha might know more. She's the one who found the journal, right? That's why she called you." Jack nodded, making a mental note to question Martha Blackwood again, more thoroughly. "Jessica," Sarah said softly, "the doctors say that in a few days you can come with me to Atlanta. I have a room ready for you, with a view of the garden." A flicker of panic crossed Jessica's face. "Atlanta? A big city?" "It's a quiet neighborhood," Sarah assured her, "and I'll be with you the whole time." Jessica nodded slowly, though Jack could see the fear in her eyes. 40 years of isolation had left her terrified of the outside world, of open spaces, of crowds. "We'll take it one day at a time," Sarah continued. "No pressure." Jessica seemed to relax a little. "And Ellie, is she okay?" "She's getting better," Jack answered. "Her family arrived from California yesterday. She's just down the hall." "Can I see her?" Jessica asked, and for the first time, Jack saw a glimmer of the young woman she had been before captivity, eager to reconnect, to support her friend. "Tomorrow, maybe," Sarah promised, "if the doctors approve." Jack stood up, aware that Jessica needed her rest. "I'll be back after we find Dana," he said. "There are a few more questions I'd like to ask when you feel up to it." Jessica nodded. "About the other girls, I understand." Her eyes met Jack's. "Detective, there's something else you should know about Raymond." "What is it, Jessica?" "He has a son." The revelation landed like a bombshell in the small room. "At least, that's what he claimed, a son he never met, from his first wife." She continued, her voice trembling slightly. "He'd talk about him sometimes, saying that one day he'd find him and teach him everything." Jack's blood ran cold. "Did he mention a name? Where this son might be?" "Michael. I only know his name is Michael and that Raymond has been looking for him for years." Jessica shuddered. I hope he never found him. Jack and Sarah exchanged a worried glance. A new dimension of horror was opening before them. The possibility that Blackwood's legacy could continue through an indoctrinated son. I'll look into it, Jack promised. Thank you for telling me, Jessica. As he said his goodbyes and left the room, Jack's mind was already racing. He needed to dig deeper into Blackwood's past, find records of a first marriage, and locate this Michael before Raymond could somehow make contact from the hospital. In the hallway, Sarah stopped him. Jack, if there really is a son, we'll find him, he assured her, and we'll make sure Blackwood can never influence him. Sarah nodded, but the worry didn't leave her face. And be careful. If this Michael is anything like his father, I will be, Jack promised. Tomorrow, after we find Dana, I'll start on this new lead. They parted ways and Jack headed for the hospital exit, feeling the weight of a 40-year investigation on his shoulders, now heavier with the new responsibility he had just acquired. The case that had defined his professional life, the one he had believed was nearly solved, just kept expanding, revealing new layers of horror and complexity. As he drove back to his hotel, Jessica's words echoed in his mind. Raymond used to talk about his first girl. How many more were there? How many lives destroyed before the 4 teenagers from Willow Creek? And this son, Michael, did he represent a new threat? Or was he just another victim of Raymond Blackwood? Jack knew he wouldn't rest until he found all the answers, until he had unearthed every dark secret Blackwood had buried in the Mississippi swamps. He owed it to Jessica, to Ellie, to Megan and Dana, and to all the others who might be waiting to be found, dead or alive. The road ahead would be long and dark, but Jack Harrison had never shied away from the darkness. After all, he'd spent 40 years chasing it. The rain was falling in heavy sheets when Jack parked in front of Martha Blackwood's house 3 days later. Dana Rogers' remains had been recovered from the exact spot Raymond had indicated beneath the weeping willow on North Island. The identification process was underway, but all signs pointed to the 4 Willow Creek girls finally being accounted for, 2 alive, 2 dead. But the case, far from closing, had opened new, unsettling doors. Martha opened the door before Jack could ring the bell, as if she'd been waiting by the window. "Detective Harrison," she greeted, her voice tense. "Please, come in." The house was noticeably different from the last time Jack had been there. Raymond's personal effects had been removed, likely by the FBI as evidence. The empty spaces on the walls where photographs once hung left clean rectangular marks on the faded wallpaper. "I've been packing," Martha explained, leading him to the kitchen. "I can't stay here, not after knowing what happened in this place." Jack nodded in understanding as he took a seat at the kitchen table. "Mrs. Blackwood, I need to ask you a few more questions. About Raymond's past, specifically." Martha poured 2 cups of coffee and sat across from him. "What else do you want to know? I thought you had everything you needed." "Jessica Williams mentioned something disturbing," Jack replied, watching Martha's reaction carefully. "She said that Raymond has a son, a Michael." The color drained from Martha's face. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted her cup. "Michael," she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. "So, Jessica knew too." "Is it true?" Jack pressed. "Does Raymond have a son?" Martha nodded slowly. "From his first marriage, to Caroline Lawson. It was a long time ago, in the 70s. They divorced when Michael was just a toddler, and Caroline moved to California with the boy." She paused, gazing out the window at the torrential rain. "Raymond lost all contact with them, but he never stopped looking." "Do you know where Michael is now?" "Not for certain. Raymond mentioned he'd managed to locate him a few years ago, living in Seattle, but he never said if he'd made contact. A knot tightened in Jack's stomach. How old would he be now? Around 50, I suppose. He was born in 73 or 74, I'm not sure. Mrs. Blackwood, Jack said carefully. Did Raymond ever mention other victims before the Willow Creek girls? Martha closed her eyes for a moment. Not directly, but in his journal, there were references to prior experiments and lessons learned. He described how he perfected his technique for when he found the 4 girls. Her voice broke. Oh, God. How could I have been married to that monster for 10 years and not see what he was? Predators like Raymond are experts at hiding their true nature, Jack said gently. You did the right thing by calling me when you discovered the truth. Too late, Martha murmured. Decades too late. Jack took a sip of coffee before continuing. I need to see that journal, Mrs. Blackwood. The original, not just the photographs you took. Martha looked at him directly. I burned it, she confessed. After they took him to the hospital, I couldn't stand having it in the house, knowing what it contained. She saw Jack's expression and quickly added, but I saved the photographs I took. They're all on my phone. Jack contained his frustration. The journal would have been crucial evidence, not just for the current case, but for identifying potential earlier victims. I need those photographs, he said firmly. All of them. Martha nodded and went to retrieve her phone. While he waited, Jack scanned the kitchen, noticing the details. A house that was impeccably clean, organized, almost clinical in its perfection. Had Martha been another of Raymond's victims molded to fit his need for order and control, or had she been a party to his crimes, knowingly or not? Here, Martha said, returning with her phone. There are over 50 pictures. I took them of the pages that seemed most important. Jack spent the next several minutes swiping through the images, his expression hardening with each new page of Blackwood's diary. The entries dated from the 1970s to the present, documenting Raymond's thoughts and philosophy with disturbing precision. June 1977, Jack read aloud under his breath. The Portland girl was a mistake. Too rebellious, too loud. Lesson, choose more docile subjects, more malleable. Next time will be different. Martha flinched. There's more. Keep scrolling. Jack continued, finding references to other acquisitions in the years before Willow Creek. A blonde girl from Baton Rouge in 1979. The sisters from Memphis in 1981. And more chillingly, mentions of necessary disposals when subjects became problematic. My God, Jack muttered. He's been doing this for decades. There's a part about Michael, Martha said softly. Further on. Jack swiped until he found it. An entry from 20 written in the same methodical script but shakier with age. I have found Michael. At last, my son, my legacy. He is a professor of anthropology in Seattle, married with 2 teenage children. He does not resemble me physically, but there is something in his eyes I recognize. The same curiosity, the same intensity. I have been observing him for weeks. Soon I will make contact. Soon I will show him the truth of who he is, of his potential, about the shelter and the girls, about everything I have built for him. A cold dread crept up Jack's spine. Do you know if he ever contacted him? Martha shook her head. Raymond was planning a trip to Seattle last year, but he got sick. The cancer. He had to postpone it. She paused. I think he sent letters, but he never mentioned getting a response. Jack took notes frantically. An anthropology professor in Seattle, married with 2 teenage kids. He wouldn't be hard to find. Mrs. Blackwood, I need you to send me all of these photographs, he said, handing the phone back. And I need you to remember any other detail, anything at all about Michael or any earlier victims Raymond might have mentioned. Martha nodded, clearly shaken. Detective, do you think Michael could be like him? That he could continue what Raymond started? I don't know, Jack answered honestly, but I'm going to make sure he doesn't get the chance. Before leaving, Jack asked one last question. Did Raymond have any other hideouts? A place besides the cabin in the swamp where he might have kept his first victims? Martha considered this. He mentioned a property once, near the Louisiana border, an abandoned farmhouse that had belonged to his uncle. He said that's where it all began. Jack noted the information. Another lead to follow, another dark place to investigate. As he left Martha's house, the rain had subsided, but the sky remained heavy with menacing clouds. Jack paused on the porch, looking out at the swamp that stretched beyond the backyard. How many more secrets did those dark waters hold? How many lost souls were waiting to be found? His phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Agent Daniels. "Harrison, we have a problem," he said without preamble. "Blackwood is gone. He's escaped the hospital." Jack's blood turned to ice. "What? How is that possible? He was in custody." He manipulated a nurse into removing his cuffs to use the restroom. When the assigned agent went to check on the delay, Blackwood had already slipped out a window. We found the nurse unconscious, bludgeoned with the toilet tank lid. "How long ago?" Jack asked, already running to his car. "About 3 hours. We've set up roadblocks and we're searching the swamp, but with his knowledge of the terrain, he's going for Jessica," Jack interrupted. "Or Ellie, to silence them. We've already reinforced security at the hospital, but there's another possibility, Harrison. He could be trying to get to his son." Jack started the engine, his hands unsteady. "I'm on my way. Alert Sarah Williams and contact Seattle PD. We need to find Michael Blackwood before his father does." As he sped toward the hospital, Jack mentally reviewed what he knew about Raymond. He was methodical, calculating, patient. He wouldn't have escaped without a carefully laid plan, and with terminal cancer, he had absolutely nothing to lose. The question wasn't if. Raymond would try to complete his legacy, but how and when? The hospital was on high alert when Jack arrived. FBI agents and local police patrolled the halls, and a SWAT team was positioned at the main entrances. Sarah was in Jessica's room, pale but resolute. "How could this happen?" she asked when she saw Jack. "Blackwood has been planning contingencies for decades," Jack replied, checking that the room's window was secure. "He's meticulous. He's probably been observing the hospital routine since he was admitted." Jessica, sitting up in bed, seemed strangely calm. "He's coming for me," she said with certainty. "Or for Ellie. He can't let us talk." "We won't let him," Jack assured her. "The building is surrounded. He won't get to you." "You don't know Raymond like I do," Jessica replied, her voice firm. "He always has a plan B and a plan C and an escape route." She looked directly at Jack. "Do you know about Michael?" Jack nodded grimly. "Martha confirmed it. We're trying to locate him in Seattle now. Raymond talked about him constantly these last few years," Jessica continued. "His legacy, his continuation. He was obsessed with the idea of passing on his knowledge." Jack moved to the window, scanning the hospital parking lot and the surrounding grounds. "Did he ever mention how he would contact Michael? Where they would meet?" Jessica closed her eyes, concentrating. "She spoke of a special place where it all began," he said. "A place only Michael would understand when the time was right." "The farm, near the Louisiana border," Jack murmured, the pieces clicking into place. "Martha mentioned it too." Jack's phone buzzed again. It was Daniels. "We've got him." The agent's voice was clipped. "Michael Blackwood, 51. Associate Professor of Anthropology at the University of Washington in Seattle. Married to Lisa Blackwood, 2 kids, Emma, 16, and Thomas, 14. Have you made contact?" "Not yet. We're coordinating with Seattle PD to locate him. It seems he's on vacation with his family, a road trip." A chill snaked down Jack's spine. "Where are they?" According to his colleagues, he mentioned something about exploring family roots down south. My God, Jack breathed. He's already on his way. Raymond is luring him here. The realization hit Jack like a physical blow. Raymond hadn't escaped to run. He had escaped to finish his work, to meet the son he'd located after decades of searching, to pass on his twisted legacy before the cancer consumed him. I need Blackwood's communication records from the hospital, Jack said quickly. Calls, letters, any outside contact. Already on it, Daniels replied. I'll keep you posted. When the call ended, Jack turned to Jessica and Sarah. We're moving you both, you and Ellie, to a secure location. A temporary witness protection protocol until Blackwood is apprehended. Sarah nodded, squeezing her sister's hand. When? Right now. The team is already en route. As Jack coordinated the transfer with the FBI agents, he couldn't shake the feeling they were on the verge of confronting something even darker than what they had already uncovered. Raymond Blackwood had been meticulous for decades, patient, calculating. He wouldn't have contacted his son without a specific purpose. The question was Michael Blackwood his father's potential victim or his true heir? Jack feared he would know the answer all too soon. The farm near the Louisiana border was exactly as Jack had imagined it. A dilapidated gray wood structure surrounded by fallow fields and a listing barn that seemed to defy gravity. A place forgotten by time and people, perfect for hiding dark secrets. 3 days had passed since Raymond Blackwood's escape. 3 days of intensive searching, police alerts, and mounting fear which had finally yielded a breakthrough. Michael Blackwood's credit card had been used at a gas station just 30 kilometers from the old family farm. Could be a coincidence, Daniels had said during the strategy briefing. There are no coincidences with Raymond Blackwood, Jack had retorted. Everything is part of his design. Now, as the FBI tactical team positioned themselves around the property, Jack felt decades of pursuit culminating in this single moment. Jessica and Ellie were safe, moved to a confidential location under federal protection. Martha Blackwood had also been placed in protective custody, though she insisted Raymond would never harm her. Team in position, the tactical leader reported over the radio. No sign of movement inside, but we have a vehicle behind the barn. Black SUV, Washington plates. Michael's here, Jack muttered. Or his car is, at least, Daniels replied beside him. Ready? Jack nodded, checking his weapon. He wasn't officially part of the FBI operation, but Daniels had insisted he be present as a consultant. After 40 years chasing Blackwood, no one knew the suspect better. Proceed with extreme caution, Daniels ordered his team. We have potentially 2 armed suspects and 3 civilians possibly in danger. The advance on the house was methodical, silent. Jack followed a short distance behind the armed agents, his eyes scanning every window, every door, knowing Raymond Blackwood would never make his capture easy. The interior of the house was steeped in gloom as the tactical team made entry, clearing each room with military precision. Jack's gaze swept over the empty spaces, the antique furniture draped in dust, the wooden floors that creaked with every step. Clear, the agents called out room by room. No one's here, the team leader finally said. The house is empty. But Jack wasn't convinced. His eyes fixed on a door beneath the staircase, partially obscured by an old wardrobe. There, he pointed. Did you check there? The agents moved the wardrobe, revealing a wooden door fitted with a new lock, jarringly out of place with the rest of the house's decay. Breach it, Daniels commanded. The door opened to a set of stairs descending into darkness. Jack felt a disturbing sense of déjà vu, remembering the cellar in Blackwood's house, the bunker under the swamp cabin. Always underground, he murmured. always hiding his victims where no one can hear them scream. The tactical team went first, their flashlights cutting through the blackness. Jack and Daniels followed, the air growing colder, damper with each step. What they found below froze the blood in their veins. It wasn't just a cellar, but a vast, recently renovated space. Concrete walls painted stark white, fluorescent lights humming overhead, a generator buzzing in the corner. And spread across the walls were photographs, dozens of them. Young women, some barely teenagers, their faces captured in moments of terror, confusion, resignation. The previous victims, Jack whispered, stepping closer to the wall. All of them. Daniels was examining another section of the cellar. Harrison, you need to see this. Jack moved to where Daniels was pointing. A meticulously organized workbench held surgical tools laid out with precision. Beside them were several notebooks labeled by year, 1975, 1980, 1980, 1985, and so on. His archive, Jack said, a wave of nausea rising in him. He's documented everything. And this, Daniels added, gesturing to a map spread across the wall. I think these are locations. A map of the United States was dotted with red pins concentrated mostly in the south, but stretching all the way to the west coast. Beside each pin was a date and a set of initials. Dear God, Jack murmured. It wasn't just a few victims before Willow Creek. It's been dozens, over decades. A noise from the staircase made them both spin around, weapons raised. It was just one of the agents, his expression grim. Sir, we found something in the barn. You need to see this. The barn stood about 50 meters from the main house, a massive structure that looked ready to collapse. The tactical team had secured the perimeter and were now focused on a section of the floor where they'd discovered another trap door. More victims? Daniels asked quietly. The agent shook his head. Not exactly, sir. It's something you have to see for yourselves. Jack descended the narrow ladder behind Daniels, the wood groaning under his weight. The space below was smaller than the house's cellar, but just as disturbing. A single bare bulb cast a weak light over what looked like a makeshift cell. A filthy mattress lay on the floor, a bucket in the corner, and chains were anchored to the wall. And in the center, bound to a metal chair, was a man in his 50s. Dark hair streaked with gray, his face pale and slick with sweat, his eyes wide with terror. His mouth was covered with duct tape, and he bore the clear signs of a beating. Michael Blackwood, Jack said, recognizing him from the university photograph. Daniels moved in quickly, ordering the agents to cut him loose. When the gag was removed, Michael coughed and gasped, struggling for breath. Where is my family? Were his first words, his voice hoarse from screaming. Where are my wife and my kids? Jack's heart hammered in his chest. They're not with you. Michael shook his head frantically. He has them. My father. He ambushed us at the motel last night. He beat me and brought me here, but he took Lisa and the children somewhere else. Tears of frustration and fear streamed down his face. He said it was part of my initiation, that I had to choose. Choose what? Jack asked, already dreading the answer. Who lived and who died? Michael answered, his voice cracking. My wife or my children. He said it was the final test to prove I was worthy of his legacy. Jack and Daniels exchanged a look of sheer horror. The situation had just become exponentially worse. Did he mention where he was taking them? Daniels asked urgently. A place called the Final Sanctuary, Michael replied. He said he's been preparing it for years for this moment, that it was his masterpiece. A cold dread washed over Jack. Do you know where this place is? Michael shook his head, then seemed to remember something. He left a map. He said when I made my choice, the map would lead me to them. It's in the house, in the master bedroom, under the pillow. Daniels immediately gave orders over the radio. Minutes later, an agent came down with a crumpled envelope. Inside was a hand-drawn map, detailing a path through the swamp to a point marked with an X. "I know this area," Jack said, studying the map. "It's near where we found Jessica and Ellie, but deeper in the swamp, a nearly inaccessible zone." "It's a trap," Daniels warned. "Of course it is," Jack agreed, his voice grim. "Raymond knows we're coming. He's probably laid all sorts of surprises for us." But what choice did they have? Michael staggered to his feet, unsteady but resolute. "They're my wife and my children. I didn't choose to be that monster's son. I knew nothing about him until 6 months ago when he started sending me letters." Jack looked at him with a flicker of sympathy. Another piece of collateral damage in Raymond Blackwood's destructive wake. "What did the letters say?" he asked. "At first, that he was my biological father and he wanted to meet me. It seemed harmless, vulnerable even. He spoke of a terminal illness, of regrets, of wanting to make peace before he died." Michael shook his head, the memory a clear torment. "I was an idiot. I told him about my family, I sent him pictures, and then he suggested this trip, a chance for us to meet, for him to show me my family roots." "It's not your fault," Jack said, his voice firm. "Raymond has been manipulating people for decades. He's a master at it." Daniels had finished giving orders over the radio and turned to them. "We're mobilizing a specialized swamp rescue team. Thermal imaging helicopters, tactical boats, everything we've got." "It won't be enough," Jack warned. "Raymond knows this swamp better than anyone," Michael completed, his face pale. "And if he suspects we're coming in force, he'll kill my family." Jack made a decision in that moment. "I'll go in alone, Harrison." "That's insane," Daniels protested. "Raymond wants me," Jack explained. "I've been his nemesis for 40 years. His endgame wouldn't make sense without me as a player." "It's suicide," Daniels insisted. "It's the only chance they have," Jack replied, looking at Michael. "Your family, and possibly other victims we don't even know about yet." Michael stared at him, his expression a mixture of desperation and gratitude. "You'd do that for us?" Jack gave a solemn nod. "I've been chasing your father for almost my entire professional life. It's time to end this, one way or another." Daniel started to protest again, but Jack cut him off. "Listen, I'm not saying I go in completely blind. You can have teams in position at a distance. But I'll be the one who approaches the shelter, the one who talks to Raymond. It's what he'll be expecting. Any deviation from that script could cost innocent lives." After several minutes of tense debate, Daniels finally relented, though with strict conditions. Jack would wear a concealed transmitter, a ballistic vest under his clothes, and a sniper team would be positioned as close as possible without being detected. As the teams prepared, Jack approached Michael, who was being tended to by paramedics. "I need to know everything you can remember about your conversations with your father," he said. "Any detail about this final shelter, any hint about his plans or intentions." Michael nodded, visibly exhausted but determined to help. "He talked about a legacy, about how I would continue his work when he was gone. He mentioned the final shelter was his masterpiece, the culmination of decades of experimentation." He shuddered at the memory. "My God, I can't believe we share the same blood." "Blood doesn't determine who we are," Jack said firmly. "Your actions do." Michael looked at him, his eyes filled with guilt and resolve. "Detective Harrison, if something happens to me, if you can't save my family, promise me that monster won't walk free. Promise me this ends here." Jack held his gaze. "I promise you, Michael, one way or another, this ends today." As the sun began to set over the Mississippi swamp, Jack Harrison prepared for what could be his final mission. 40 years of hunting a monster had led him to this moment, to this final confrontation in the depths of a swamp that had hidden Raymond Blackwood's secrets for decades. As he adjusted the vest and checked his weapon, Jack thought of Jessica and Ellie, of the recovered remains of Megan and Dana, of the dozens of victims whose faces he'd seen in the photographs from the cellar. They all deserved justice. They all deserved for Raymond Blackwood to finally answer for his crimes. And if, to achieve that, Jack had to walk alone into the darkness of the swamp, to come face to face with the evil that had defined his career. So be it. He was ready. The swamp at night was a place of nightmares. The moonlight barely filtered through the cypress canopy, creating twisted shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. The sound of water lapping against the small boat Jack propelled with a pole was the only noise breaking the sepulchral silence, along with the occasional distant cry of a night bird. Jack moved slowly, following Raymond's map with the help of a partially covered flashlight to minimize his visibility. The ballistic vest under his shirt felt heavy, and the hidden microphone in his collar pricked at his skin. But these were trivial discomforts compared to the tension coiling in his gut as he pushed deeper and deeper into hostile territory. Current position approximately 1 click from the target, he murmured to the team listening through the transmitter. The channel is narrowing. I'll have to abandon the boat soon. Daniel's reply came, muffled, through the tiny earpiece. Copy that. Teams are in position 500 meters from the perimeter, concealed. Thermal drones are picking up 3 small heat signatures in what looks like a subterranean structure, plus a 4th, larger one, moving around the perimeter. Raymond and the hostages, Jack confirmed in a low voice. Can you see if they're injured? Negative. Resolution isn't good enough at this distance, but they are alive. Jack felt a momentary wave of relief. Lisa Blackwood and her children were still alive. For now, that gave him a chance. The channel ended abruptly in a small clearing beyond which the vegetation became too dense to navigate. Jack secured the boat to a fallen tree and stepped down into the shallow, knee-deep water. The mud beneath his feet threatened to suck him down with every step, making progress a constant struggle. According to the map, the final shelter was less than 300 meters away. Jack switched off his flashlight, letting his eyes adjust to the gloom. He didn't want to alert Raymond to his presence prematurely. The sound of a twig snapping to his right made him freeze. It hadn't come from the direction of the shelter, but from the trees on his flank. Jack silently drew his weapon, every sense on high alert. I knew you'd come alone, Harrison. The voice slithered out of the shadows, familiar and terrifying. Raymond Blackwood emerged slowly from between the trees, a slender figure but surprisingly upright for a man of his age and condition. In his right hand he held a shotgun, pointed casually in Jack's direction. Raymond, Jack replied, keeping his voice steady. Where is Michael's family? Blackwood smiled, his teeth glinting in the dim light. Safe, for now. In my final refuge, my masterpiece. He gestured with the shotgun. Lower your weapon, detective. We both know you didn't come all this way just to shoot me without getting some answers first. Jack considered his options. He could try for a shot, but the darkness and distance made a clean hit unlikely. And Raymond was right. He needed information. Slowly, Jack lowered his gun, though he didn't release his grip on it. Clever, Raymond commented. Now I want you to toss the gun into the water, and any others you might have hidden. First, I need to know the hostages are alive, Jack countered. Raymond seemed to consider the request for a moment, then nodded. He pulled a small walkie-talkie from his jacket pocket and pressed a button. Thomas, my boy, tell your mother to say hello to our guest. A terrified teenage boy's voice crackled from the device. My mom says, she says, please don't listen to him. She says he's going to kill us anyway. Raymond frowned. Lisa was always the perceptive one. Now, detective, the weapon. Jack tossed his pistol into the swampy water, followed by the small backup piece he carried at his ankle. What do you want, Raymond? Why all this? Isn't it obvious? Raymond began to move slowly, circling Jack, keeping the shotgun leveled on him. My time is running out. This cancer is eating me from the inside. But my work, my vision, my legacy, that must continue. Michael won't follow in your footsteps, Jack said firmly. He's not like you. We are all a product of our blood, Harrison. He just needs guidance, the right kind of pressure to reveal his true nature. Raymond paused, considering something. Do you know why I chose those 4 girls in Willow Creek? Why them, specifically? Jack kept his gaze locked on Raymond, aware that every word they exchanged bought the tactical team more time to get into position. Enlighten me. Potential, Raymond replied with a haunting smile. I saw in them a potential that the ordinary world would squander. Jessica with her analytical mind, Ellie with her empathy, Megan with her determination, Dana with her creativity. They were special. They deserved to be preserved, protected from the world that would have corrupted and wasted them. You kidnapped them, Jack corrected. You psychologically tortured them for decades. 2 of them are dead because of you. Raymond shook his head like a professor disappointed in a dull student. I saved them. I gave them purpose, structure, meaning. What I did for them, I must now do for my own son, show him the truth about the world, about himself. By forcing him to choose between his wife and his children. Jack took a cautious step toward Raymond. That's not guidance, Raymond, that's monstrosity. It's necessary, Blackwood insisted. Pain reveals our true nature. I learned that when I was 12 and my father locked me in a closet for 3 days with no food or water. It showed me who I really was, what I could endure, what I could do to survive. Jack began to understand Raymond's twisted logic. Your father abused you and now you're continuing the cycle with Michael. My father freed me, Raymond corrected. He showed me that normal rules, conventional morality, they are cages for the weak. The strong make their own rules. His expression hardened. Now enough talk. Walk, detective. My refuge awaits, and Michael must make his decision tonight. Jack moved slowly in the direction Raymond indicated, aware of every sound in the swamp, of Blackwood's exact position behind him, of the shotgun aimed at his back. The transmitter was still working. Daniels and his team would be listening, tracking his position, preparing to move in. After several minutes of walking through increasingly difficult terrain, they reached a small clearing where the ground rose slightly, forming a tiny island in the middle of the swamp. In the center stood what appeared to be a simple wooden cabin, smaller and more modest than the one in Hawkins. Doesn't look like much, Jack commented, sizing up the structure. Raymond smiled. The true beauty is beneath the surface, detective, as it always is. They approached the cabin. Raymond produced a key from his pocket and unlocked the main door, revealing a Spartan interior. A table, 2 chairs, a cold, wood-burning stove. Nothing special. Move, Raymond ordered, gesturing to a trapdoor in the floor with the shotgun. Jack knelt and lifted the heavy door, revealing a metal ladder descending into darkness. The familiarity of the situation was disturbing. Another cellar, another subterranean prison, more innocent lives trapped beneath the earth. After you, Raymond said. Jack began his descent, each metal rung echoing in the enclosed space. Unlike Blackwood's other shelters, this one was far more modern, almost futuristic. Reinforced concrete walls, LED lighting, an advanced ventilation system, and most unsettling, multiple rooms sealed with steel doors. Welcome to my masterpiece, Raymond announced with pride. Designed to withstand floods, storms, even minor earthquakes, self-sufficient with generators, water filtration, food storage for years. The perfect shelter. For what? Jack asked. To keep more young women prisoner? Raymond shook his head. To preserve the best of humanity when the rest of the world destroys itself. I've been preparing for decades, Harrison. I've seen the way the world is heading. Chaos, degradation, moral collapse. My son will continue my work, selecting the worthy, protecting them here. You're insane, Jack muttered. I'm a visionary, Raymond corrected. And tonight, Michael will either accept his destiny or he will lose everything. Raymond led him down a short corridor to a steel door. He opened it, revealing a large room with security monitors on one wall. In the center, tied to metal chairs, were Lisa Blackwood and her two teenage children, Emma and Thomas. Lisa's eyes widened when she saw Jack. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Detective Jack Harrison," he replied, quickly assessing their condition. They appeared physically unharmed, though clearly terrified. "I'm here to get you out." "How touching," Raymond sneered. "But incorrect." He gestured with the shotgun toward a fourth empty chair. "Sit down, detective. We're waiting for the guest of honor." Jack sat slowly, his mind racing. The tactical team would be tracking his position. But a frontal assault on a structure like this would be extremely dangerous, especially with hostages. "Where is Michael?" Jack asked. As if in answer, footsteps echoed on the ladder. Moments later, Michael Blackwood entered the room, escorted by two armed men Jack hadn't seen before. "Security guards?" Jack asked, surprised. Raymond smiled. "Mercenaries, ex-military, unscrupulous but highly skilled. Even a monster like me needs a little help now and then, detective." Michael rushed toward his family, but one of the guards stopped him sharply. "Lisa! Kids, are you okay?" he yelled, struggling against the guard's grip. "We're alive," Lisa replied, trying to stay strong for her children. Raymond clapped his hands together slowly. "Such a touching reunion. But now, my son, it is time for your final test." He gestured to one of the guards who placed a pistol on a nearby table. "It's simple, Michael," Raymond continued. "One bullet, 3 people you love. You must choose who lives and who dies, or I will choose for you and kill them all." Michael's face went white. "You're sick. I'm not going to kill my family." "You don't have to," Jack interjected. "The FBI is surrounding this place right now. It's only a matter of minutes before they breach." Raymond seemed unperturbed by this information. "I know, detective. Why do you think I moved up the timeline? But this bunker was designed to withstand an assault. We have plenty of time." He turned back to Michael. "You have 2 minutes to decide, son, or I will." Jack saw the desperation in Michael's eyes, the terror on the faces of Lisa and her children. It was time to play his last card. "Raymond," he said, his voice loud and clear. "You remember Jessica Williams, Ellie Cooper?" Blackwood looked at him, irritated. "Of course. My girls." "They lied to you," Jack continued. "For decades, they pretended to accept you, to adapt, when in reality they despised you. They mocked you behind your back." Raymond's expression shifted. A mixture of disbelief and fury began to form. "You're lying." "Jessica kept a secret diary," Jack improvised, watching Raymond's reaction carefully. "We found it in the bunker. She wrote about how you were pathetic, obsessive, ridiculous, how she and the others were planning to eventually escape and expose you." "Shut up!" Raymond roared, his composure visibly crumbling. Jack pressed on, knowing he'd struck a nerve. "Your grand experiment was a failure, Raymond. You never saved them. They never truly respected or feared you. They laughed at you behind your back." Raymond stalked toward Jack, the shotgun trembling in his hands. Liar. My girls loved me. They needed me. They tolerated you, Jack corrected. They put up with you because they had no other choice. But in their minds, they were free. Free from your control, from your sick vision. Raymond's face contorted into a mask of fury. He raised the shotgun, his finger tightening on the trigger. It was the moment Jack had been waiting for. With a swift motion, he drew the small knife he'd kept hidden in his sleeve and threw it with precision, striking Raymond in the shoulder. It wasn't a fatal blow, but it was enough to throw off his aim. The shotgun fired, the blast tearing into the ceiling. Chaos erupted. Michael seized the distraction to lunge at one of the guards, while Jack rolled out of his chair and tackled Raymond. The two men crashed to the floor, a frantic struggle for the shotgun ensuing. Despite his illness, Raymond fought with the desperate strength of a man with nothing left to lose. He managed to strike Jack across the face with the butt of the weapon, stunning him for a moment. "I should have killed you decades ago," Raymond snarled, struggling to aim again. "You should have tried," Jack shot back, recovering enough to kick the shotgun, sending it skittering across the floor. At that moment, a deafening explosion rocked the entire bunker. The FBI had breached. Raymond's eyes darted to the door, then to Jack, and finally to a side door Jack hadn't noticed before. "This isn't over, Harrison," he hissed, and with an agility surprising for his age, he lunged for the side door. Jack staggered to his feet, seeing that Michael had subdued one of the guards and was now untying his family. The second guard had fled. "Go to your family!" Jack yelled to Michael. "The FBI is here!" Without waiting for a reply, Jack sprinted after Raymond, slipping through the side door just before it sealed shut. He found himself in a narrow, dimly lit tunnel that seemed to stretch for dozens of yards. "Blackwood!" he shouted, advancing cautiously, aware it could be a trap. There was no answer, only the sound of hurried footsteps ahead and the muffled explosions from behind, where the FBI was storming the main bunker. The tunnel ended abruptly at another ascending staircase. Jack climbed quickly, emerging through a trapdoor hidden in the undergrowth about 100 yards from the main cabin. The night was still dark, but the sky was now sliced by the searchlights of FBI helicopters circling overhead. Jack scanned the surroundings, trying to spot Raymond in the gloom. A rustle to his left alerted him just in time to dodge a blow aimed at his head. Raymond emerged from the shadows, no longer with the shotgun, but with a rusty machete. His face was a mask of pure hatred. "It's over, Raymond," Jack said, dodging another swing. "The FBI has the bunker. Your son and his family are safe. You have nowhere to go." "There's always an escape route, Detective," Raymond replied, his voice strangely calm now. "There's always another sanctuary." He lunged again, the machete slicing through the air inches from Jack's face. The two men, one 65, the other 72, fought with a determination forged over decades of mutual obsession. Jack searched frantically for a weapon. His fingers found a thick fallen branch which he raised just in time to block another machete strike. 40 years, Raymond said between gasps. 40 years chasing me, and here we are, two old men fighting in a swamp. He let out a bitter laugh. Was it worth it, Harrison, sacrificing your life, your marriage, everything to catch me? It was worth it for Jessica, Jack countered, parrying another blow. For Ellie, for all of your victims. My victims, Raymond spat. My protected ones, my family, you took them from me. He attacked with renewed fury, driving Jack back toward the water's edge. Jack stumbled on a hidden root and fell backward. Raymond loomed over him, the machete raised for the final blow. Raymond Blackwood, a female voice rang out in the night. Drop the weapon, now! Raymond froze, turning slowly. A few yards away, illuminated by the moonlight, stood Sarah Williams, a pistol aimed steadily at him. "Sarah," Raymond murmured, his expression shifting to one of strange tenderness. "My Sarah, the protective sister. I always knew you were special." "Drop the machete!" Sarah repeated, her voice firm despite the slight tremor in her hands. "Did you know Jessica asked for you every day at first?" Raymond continued, ignoring the command. "She cried your name at night, until I became her family, her everything." "Shut up!" Sarah ordered, taking a step forward. "Don't you say her name. You don't have the right." Jack slowly pushed himself up, looking for a chance to intervene without endangering her. "We're a twisted family, don't you think, Sarah?" Raymond smiled, lowering the machete slightly. "You, me, Jessica, Jack, bound by fate for 40 years. Bound by your monstrosity," Sarah corrected. "Now drop the weapon or I will shoot." Raymond seemed to consider his options, glancing from Jack to Sarah. Finally, with a theatrical sigh, he let the machete drop to the ground. "After all this time," he said with a sad smile, "it's still my sanctuary that brings us together." Then, with a sudden movement no one anticipated, Raymond took a step back and fell into the swampy water. Before Jack or Sarah could react, he had submerged completely. Jack rushed to the water's edge, scanning the dark surface. "Raymond!" There was no reply, only the faint ripples in the disturbed water. Sarah came closer, the pistol still in her hands. "Do you think he's—" "I don't know," Jack answered honestly. "He could be trying to escape underwater." The thought went unfinished. They both knew a terminally ill man like Raymond might have chosen an end on his own terms, in the swamp that had been his accomplice for decades. FBI agents began to arrive, followed by search teams with dogs and equipment. Jack explained the situation, and a search was quickly organized. "What are you doing here, Sarah?" Jack asked when they finally had a moment alone. "You should be with Jessica." "She sent me," Sarah replied, holstering the pistol Daniels had provided. "She said you'd need help, that Raymond wouldn't go down without a fight." A small smile crossed her face. "It seems that after 40 years, my sister still knows her captor better than anyone." Jack nodded, feeling a mix of admiration and sorrow for the Williams sisters. "How is she?" "Getting better," Sarah answered. "Every day is different. Some are good, some not so much, but she's alive, Jack. She's free. That's what matters." As the search teams combed the swamp and paramedics attended to Michael's family, Jack stared out at the dark water where Raymond had vanished. 40 years chasing a monster, and now, when it finally seemed to be over, he felt a strange emptiness. "Do you think it's really over?" Sarah asked. As if reading his mind, Jack looked toward the now secured bunker, toward the monitors where they would likely find clues of more victims, more horrors. He looked at the swamp that might be hiding Raymond Blackwood's body, or perhaps, just perhaps, protecting him for one last act of evil. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "But if Raymond is still alive, we'll find him. And if there are more victims to uncover, we'll give them the peace they deserve." Dawn was beginning to break on the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of pink. A new day was emerging over the Mississippi swamp, carrying away the shadows of the night. For Jack Harrison, the case that had defined his life might have reached its end, or perhaps it had just entered a new chapter. But one thing was certain: the 4 girls of Willow Creek had finally found justice, even if it was 40 years late. And that, he decided as he walked with Sarah toward the FBI vehicles, was enough for now.